I had somebody ask about how I get these air filters apart. Well, I got a piece of, well, you can use aluminum, you could use a piece of wood if you wanted to, but it's, in this particular case, this happens to be titanium, but it doesn't need to be for any reason. Piece of wood dowel pin work just as well. Turn this to 1 inch 570, which is the diameter of the mouth of the carburetor where the air filter fits on. And I put this on there, on the end of there. It's hard to do with one hand. I slip that on there with a hose clamp to hold it. Once it's on there with a hose clamp, I could take and file it using a file right here to remove that bead on there. But that would take considerably longer than just cutting it off with a tool bit. I found the part I want to take off is on this side. I don't want to take anything off over here on this side, or even on the top here if I can help it. I'm just interested in getting this part that's swedged over here, getting that removed. So in this case, I'm going to use a lathe tool bit and go in there and do it, since I have a lathe. If you didn't have a lathe, you'd have to, I don't know, figure some way to turn that thing. If you don't have a lathe, I'd really advise you to at least buy a lathe chuck and hook up a thing with some belts and a pillow block so you can turn things and spin things. It's a pretty handy thing to have. I mean, most of the time I'm not chasing threads or anything like that unless I'm making a mold. I don't need any power feed or gears or anything like that. All I need is a pillow block and a chuck to spin something. Sometimes you can do this stuff in the drill press, in which case you'd be working vertically, and that would work too. You might be able to turn it on there. But of course, you have to make sure this turns true. If not, you got to kind of tap it with I usually use a plastic hammer like this to tap it to make sure I get this bead running true before I go cutting on anything. But if you're filing, it doesn't really have to be perfectly true. You can get a pretty good job without doing that. But if you got a real coarse file, yeah, you could do it on the drill press if you can slow your drill press down enough. Now you can see as I'm cutting with this tool bit that I'm starting to cut through this piece of metal here, which if that was to break or get tangled up in this tool bit, it might bend and damage this part I'm working on. It's sheet metal, so it's kind of delicate. I don't want to hurt the air filter. So usually what I do in that case is I use pliers or something to grab this and tear this last little bit off of here in order to separate the two halves. I think that's what people wanted to know, is how do I go about doing it. But you got to be real careful here at the end, because if a piece of metal comes out of there and catches on something, it could knock everything already, and you could probably bend it back into shape, but I don't want to take that chance. Now here you can see where I've got this piece of metal peeling off there. It's kind of like opening a tin can. That's all there is to it. You pull that off. Now I can remove this piece. Now this is exactly what it looked like when it come apart. I just grabbed the end of it and pulled it off there. This is the rusty. You can see how much rust is in this thing. Now that'll tend to accumulate at the bottom because people wash the bike, or it sits out in the rain or something. Rainwater stuff can go in through these holes. It gets in there, it's going to go to one edge, and that's going to give you all this rust. And you really don't want that getting sucked in your engine. These are the two little pads, which, as you can see, weren't exactly put in there concentric. This particular air filter doesn't look as bad as the other one, but in fact this is probably the best one I ever took apart. But this one here is actually you can see it's steel. It's most of the rust is just on the bottom, so this one really wasn't in too bad a shape, not compared to the others. And looks like a piece of paper in there. Maybe that tells you where to get them or what. I don't know if there's a part number on it or not, but anyways, that's the steel wool. But again, I'm going to replace that with stainless. And I've been trying to think of a way that I can put these together and paint the inside, and I think I've come up with it. This first one I soldered together, which is easy to do since you have a register on there. So these two pieces will go back together just perfect and to the right depth and everything. You got no problem at all doing that. But this still has a little burr on it from when I cut it off. But I'll take a burring knife and get rid of that. But you can see that there's a little land in here that it sets on. There's not much, but a little tiny bit if you don't cut off too much. And I'll use that to glue it back together. I think I'm going to try to blast these and paint it and then glue it with something like PC7 or JB Weld. In fact, I've got some PC7. I think I got that from, that's what that is. It's an epoxy type stuff, which well, this is PC11. I never heard of PC11. Huh. Well, it's probably made in China, or it's like it's got some Spanish writing on there too. But anyways, it's like a paste. It's a thick epoxy type stuff, kind of like JB Weld, but not very runny or anything. And that I could smear in there, a little bit of that in that groove, put the two pieces together and let it set overnight, and I think that would put it together good, and then I could have it painted on the inside too, so you wouldn't get this rust. You know, I'd either like to have it painted or take it down and get it plated, but I don't know, getting plated, that takes a lot of time. So, but that's how I got it apart. Soft soldering works. You can put it together that way too if you get it blasted and really clean, but I know a lot of people don't have a blast cabinet, and if you get it cleaned up pretty good, you get most of the rust out of there. I think PC7 or JB Weld or this stuff, PC11, I must have got that on eBay. I don't know what that is. Sounds counterfeit to me. Anyways, put that on there. I think that'll fix it. Okay, now I've got the burr off of there, which is, you want to get it just right about on the very top of that bulge on there, where they swedged it over, allow you to easily get to that land. Now this goes together pretty easy. You'll see, you just set that down on there like that, and it'll set even on that land. Wait a minute. Trying to do this with one hand, that's not easy. There you go. And it'll set on there. Now you can see how you can bind that back together pretty easy. Either soldering, brazing. Brazing, of course, takes heat, and the heat could damage things inside, particularly if you plan on painting it inside like I do. Even if it's plated, it's still, the heat would damage the plating inside, so you might as well not plate it at all. My idea is to paint it and then and use an adhesive to put the two pieces together. I think I'm going to try that this time. The other change I'm making is I drilled out this hole in the center slightly. I'm going to use a 5mm screw in here to put it together instead of a 4mm. I don't know why. I think what I have in there, what I have in this one's plenty tight enough, and it works smooth and everything. But I got a lot more 5mm screws around here, so I think I'll use that. So I'm going to take it out. I'm going to blast these screens, and then I'll take and paint everything up. As you can see, this piece here is just an extreme amount of rust maybe, but it should clean up just fine. It shouldn't have any problem with this at all. These air filters, if you can get new air filters for $100, it might be worth doing. I mean, you know, of course you'd have the steel. What I like is the idea of putting stainless instead of this stuff in there, but if you keep it oiled and take care of it the way you're supposed to, this shouldn't even be a problem, but nobody ever does that. And of course it doesn't filter a dang thing, especially as far as dust goes, if they don't oil that air cleaner. So that's a real important thing to do, but I'm sure people never did it. Okay, I guess this answers everybody's questions. I hope so anyway.